folks, welcome back. We have some breaking news before we get to Bill Kristol. And FoxNews.com has spoken to a source who is close to the department's top brass in Ferguson, Missouri. And he says that the assistant police chief took the officer who shot Michael Brown to the hospital with his face all swollen. He said that there were severe injuries, facial injuries, including an orbital eye socket fracture, and the officer was nearly beaten unconscious by Michael Brown. Again, according to it all, there's also proof, he says, proof that Michael Brown struggled for the officer's gun and that the gun went off. Michael Brown then ran away and came back with his hands up and said, "What are you going to do, shoot me?" and then charged at the officer who had nearly been beaten unconscious minutes or moments earlier. So that seems to be the story here by the police officer. This is breaking news right now. We'll have more on that. First, Bill Kristol, and I want you to all watch this really horrific tape.
This is James Wright Foley, an American citizen of your country. As a government, you have been at the forefront of the aggression towards the Islamic State. You have plotted against us and gone far out of your way to find reasons to interfere in our affairs. Today, your military air force is attacking us daily in Iraq. Your strikes have caused casualties amongst Muslims. You are no longer fighting an insurgency. We are an Islamic army and a state, so any attempt by you, Obama, to deny the Muslims their rights of living in safety under the Islamic Caliphate will result in the bloodshed of your people.
And that, of course, part of the video of the beheading of journalist Jim Foley, which ISIS released. And joining us now is Bill Kristol, founder and editor of the Weekly Standard and ABC News political commentator. Hey, Bill.
Hey, how are you?
All right. It's just so hard to watch and to listen and to see. And he's going right at Obama, and Obama's response today is basically more of the same. The people of Iraq have to reject ISIS, and no mention of Islamic fundamentalism or terrorism. It made it seem like if only we could find these people jobs, they'd behave better.
Yeah, not even a statement that we're going to make ISIS pay a price and pay a very, very heavy price for this. I didn't see Obama's statement, but it's really pathetic. I mean, I feel sick, really, as an American. I mean, an American gets killed, murdered, brutally murdered. They put out the video. I think, didn't he say this is Message to America? Wasn't that the title, sort of the video or something like that? Or he said that, I guess, the killer. And now what do we, I mean, maybe, it's just, but Obama's, he looked angry during his statement, I'm told. So I guess he thinks that's enough. And now he's playing golf up in Martha's Vineyard. I mean, David Cameron, the Prime Minister of England,
came home.
Yeah, he has no connection to this. I mean, much less of a connection. I guess the guy might be English, the murderer. But anyway, he came home, at least as a gesture of respect. I mean, really, the president has to play golf with Alonzo Mourning?
It is beyond ridiculous and crazy. It's obscene at this point. It really is. But again, missing the message. And as you said, I mean, there should be some fist pounding. There should be some threats. If you think you could deter us by this, if you think you've seen attacks on ISIS so far, you watch how we'll honor the memory of Jim Foley. But you're right, that was just lacking, and the passion was lacking too, to be quite honest.
Yeah, and I mean, it wouldn't be bad. Presumably, we do know about some ISIS headquarters and command centers and troops somewhere in the Iraq-Syria area. They could have been attacked today. I mean, you don't have to get the people, it'd be nice to get the murderer or the people who were directly in the chain of command of the murderer and the higher-ups and all that, but, you get who you can get. But you just sit here and have an American murdered and have the president just go out and say it's very, he's very angry. And luckily, don't worry, history works against people like that. I mean, I saw that line he had. It was so childish, really. I'll find it actually in the transcript here, but ISIL has no ideology that's worthwhile. People like this ultimately fail.
Yeah.
Really? Well, the Nazis ultimately failed, but they killed 6 million Jews and tens of millions of other people along the way,
Yeah, no, that was a great point, because that struck me at the time as well. It's all kumbaya, it'll all take care of itself, just don't worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's so, I guess, terrified to get involved in a fight, but you know what? these guys are coming after us. They're coming after any American they can get their hands on, obviously, in the region. They're going to come after the homeland here. They'll come after Americans elsewhere in Europe and others. And God knows they're slaughtering Muslims and who don't want to bow to them, and Yazidis and Christians. And I mean, it's just Obama's response is so inappropriate, so, out of scale to the magnitude now of the challenge and the grotesqueness, really, of this group. The idea that they're going to control thousands of square miles in the Middle East, even if we stop them from taking over Erbil, even if we, check them a little bit, contain them a little bit with some airstrikes, are we happy? Are we willing to just let them control this whole area? It's really unbelievable.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Rick Perry indictment and, the whole spectacle, the mugshot, the whole procedure yesterday when he turned himself in. I mean, I've never seen, and I'm kind of shocked by it, I guess, the reaction from many prominent people on the left who have said, have come out in support of Rick Perry in all this.
Well, it's such an insane indictment that you're going to indict someone for vetoing something. I mean, that's what the governor does, and if the legislature wants to, I guess they can override the veto if that's the way Texas works. I don't know the details of their arrangement, but it's just ridiculous. I do think actually they overreached. This is a notorious left-wing politicized DA's office. I think Perry's had a good few months, actually. if you had asked me 4 or 5 months ago, just looking at the presidential race, and I really don't have a favorite, so I'm trying to look at it kind of objectively as a conservative and just let them all make their case, And if you'd asked me 3 or 4 months ago, I would have said, Rick Perry, I don't know, couldn't make it in 2012. Surely people will want a fresh face in 2016. I now wonder, he was good on immigration, good on border security. He's been strong on foreign policy, and I do think the mood now of the country, certainly of Republicans and conservatives, but I think the country as a whole is probably a little more. Could we have a tough guy in there who would stand up to ISIS, who would defend the cops, incidentally, when they're getting, just trashed by the entire liberal media for what might have been a bad error of judgment by one policeman, we don't know, but the whole police forces of the United States are now being trashed, the borders being overrun, terrorists are on the rampage in the Middle East. Could we just get someone in there who would be tough enough to take on these characters, both at home and abroad? I think that sets up a situation where someone like Perry might become a plausible presidential nominee for the Republican Party.
And might he be helped, at least in the Republican primary circuit, by this indictment, no matter how it pans out?
Yeah, especially assuming it doesn't pan out.
Well, I mean, right? If he's, yeah, but
yeah, absolutely, I think so. I mean, with sort of Richard Nixon, others. Nixon, I'm thinking of 52 here, not of the impeachment of Nixon. The notion that you're unjustly attacked by your political enemies and that you sort of come back from that has been conservatives are used to that, because they are used to being treated unjustly, both by elements actually of the criminal justice system at times. Tom DeLay is acquitted after 8 years or something like that of being chased around and by Texas political.
He's still working on his appeal. He told me yesterday. He also said Rick Perry should be prepared for the worst.
Yeah, I mean they'll go after him. So, but I think conservatives understand that. I think they don't sort of take something like this. They don't believe that this is a legitimate indictment, and I think they like to see someone fighting back. And so, I don't know. I'm sure Perry wouldn't have wished it to happen. It's a distraction and it's a threat, but I think he's handled himself well.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about. You mentioned the police. Your take on the Ferguson incident. It's to the point. I had Jesse Jackson on, and he said, and I presented the police take on it, or the scenario of what happened, and he at first accused me of making up facts, and then I said, well, what if that was? I said, are there any circumstances, any at all, that would justify this officer shooting Michael Brown? And he said, no. He said, do you have any? I said, yeah, the scenario I just gave you.
Ridiculous. I mean, look, I actually think Chris Christie's reaction of the political guys I've seen has been maybe the best, or at least one of the best, where he said, he doesn't want to prejudge the individual case, but we cannot go around trashing the police forces of the United States. There's no evidence that they systematically use excessive force. It's a policy matter. All this militarization talk is a policy matter. Maybe the government should give them less stuff to, ride around in these up-armored vehicles. And
although not one protester has been shot at or killed.
Right, exactly. But I'm not convinced that, in fact, the quote militarization doesn't decrease the use of police force. If you're a cop, as the cop was when he may have been charged by Brown or in any way, whatever he felt the threat was, there's more of a threat if you're just standing there with your pistol than if you do have the kind of extra gear. So,
Sure.
but I'm neutral on that. That's a matter for police
yeah.
experts to kind of go look at. The idea, but I think the libertarians, the liberals, but also some of our conservative elites, sort of libertarian types, have gone totally off the rails on this. The police are
Like Rand Paul?
Yeah, Rand Paul and a lot of people writing op-eds about how this is a great chance for conservatives to really come out against the police. Really? I think most conservatives, most Americans think most policemen have pretty risky jobs that they do a pretty good job with. And most Americans don't look up if they see a policeman walking down the street towards them and think, ooh, that's a terrible thing. They think, hey, here's a cop. That's probably nice to see they're patrolling the neighborhood, you know?
Yeah, no, I hear you. Bill, it's always a pleasure to speak to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Hey, my pleasure.
Take care. Bill Kristol, ladies and gentlemen, founder and editor of the Weekly Standard and ABC News political commentator. We always get so much covered with him, and I love talking to him. Then I love watching him on the Sunday shows and all. Okay, before we go, we want your opinion. Is Rand Paul right? Bill Kristol says he's off the rails on this. Is he right? Do you think the Ferguson police are over-militarized? Go to newsmax.com/polls, newsmax.com/polls, and vote. All right, and when we come back, former New York Police Commissioner Bernard Kerik